Throughout my life, I enjoyed reading, and I knew the benefits to be derived from having a well-stocked library available. I wanted to give the townspeople and the generations to come an opportunity to realize some of those same benefits. Dexter had been the home of my family since 1806, and the Abbott businesses had flourished, largely due to the many faithful, dedicated workers who gave unstintingly of themselves in their time. In 1890, I felt strongly that I would like to show my appreciation for all the town had given me and my family. I decided a beautiful library building in memory of my father and his three brothers would be a fitting gift and tribute. George A. Abbott. It all started in 1806 when a young girl named Mehitable arrived with her parents to become one of the first families to settle in what is now Dexter. 14 years later, two brothers, Amos and Jeremiah Abbott, arrived from Massachusetts in search of water rights to power their manufacturing dreams. They found a sawmill and a carding mill for sale, which they purchased and quickly expanded. Soon, they were not only carding wool, but also weaving and finishing cloth, producing the well-known New England fabric called Abbott Grays. Amos found and married Mehitable and moved into 5 Church Street, where they had 3 children, the youngest of which was named George Amos Abbott. From the time he was a small lad, George knew he wanted to be a millman like his father. So after he completed high school, he went to work at the mill until he fell victim to a lung illness that would affect him for the rest of his life. A serious reoccurrence 2 years later prompted George to find a cure. He tried several doctors' recommendations, including a salt air cure, which resulted in a round-trip sea journey of nearly 6,000 miles to New Orleans. With his health restored, George returned to dedicate himself to improving the mills. Soon, thousands of pounds of wool and machinery were hauled to and from the railhead in Newport by horse-drawn wagons. It was not long before George realized a rail extension to Dexter was necessary, so he made this a reality by 1868. After the rail extension was built, George turned his attention to rebuilding his beloved Universalist church, creating what is still standing today. 20 years later, after building a new home for his growing family, George took on the challenge of building the Dexter to Dover rail extension, which was completed in 1889. Throughout these building years, George's love of the books and the inspiration he gained from them led him to dream of building a library of the Renaissance Revival architectural style he had seen in New Orleans. It was to be constructed of granite, brick, and slate, with terracotta eaves inscribed with the names of his favorite authors, Shakespeare, Hugo, Milton, Dante, and Aristotle, to name a few. In his diary, he wrote, "At an early time, these authors had made a difference in my life, and I'm sure, in no small way, they were responsible for some of the major decisions I made in later years. They had opened windows on the world. I wanted them remembered." George did not have to look far to find an ideal library location. Down the road from his house, the Ayer residence was situated where a town square could be formed from the new library, town hall, and Universalist church. In December of 1893, George paid Mr. Ayer $5,000, and the town added $1,000 to sweeten the deal and to have a more visible site for the Soldiers' Monument and Liberty Pole. Throughout that winter, George and Boston architect William Beale created the plans for a library large enough to contain a stack room of 14,000 volumes, a reading room, an art room, a librarian's room, space for municipal offices, a vault, and several fireplaces. The main area would have an arched gold leaf paneled ceiling and rich oak paneling throughout. Local men were hired, and construction began in April 1894 and was completed on schedule December 1st that same year. George presented the town of Dexter with a Christmas present by deeding over the building and property in consideration of $1. 6 months later, a gala dedication ceremony took place. All businesses and offices were closed until 4 p.m. for the grand festivities. For nearly 125 years, the library has been the backdrop for life in Dexter. has stood strong against wind, rain, and snow. However, the building is starting to age. Water is seeping into and cracking terracotta from leaking gutters. The slate roof has many leaks. The front entryway and railings are degraded, and many storm windows have become opaque. It's time to restore the building to its original form so it can retain its beauty and prominence in Dexter for the next 125 years. The library trustees have been working with architects to plan the work that needs to be done. With a decreasing tax base, the town of Dexter needs help to carry out the work. We have received a generous $250,000 challenge grant, which we must match by September of 2019. This will be an enormous task, but one that will ensure the preservation of George Abbott's most enduring and beautiful gift.